Namaskar, you positive souls. Welcome to our talk show, PositiWitty with Praveen. Today, we have a very special guest from Australia with us, an international speaker and body language expert. She is the best-selling author of the book, The Million Dollar Handshake, which is translated in 3 languages. She has traveled across the world and studied body language for more than 30 years across different cultures. At the age of 22, when most of us were either in college or just starting our career, she won the National Salesperson of the Year award with Commercial Bank of Australia and Westpac Bank. She has recently won International Stevie Award for Leadership and Sales. So my positive souls, please join hands in welcoming the puppeteer of communication and body language psychology, Cath Molloy. Welcome, Cath,
Thank you.
on the show. We are double delighted to have you here today.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So, Cath, here is my first question for you. We know you had a very successful real estate business. What motivated you to move from hard walls to soft skills training?
Oh, very good question. I don't know, but back in the GFC, I don't know if everyone can remember, it was only around 10 years ago, that other crisis we had, the global financial crisis. My husband actually fell ill and he didn't go back into work. So during that time, he said we need to sell the business because he wouldn't get better while, he was worried about everything. So we sold the business in a crisis, which meant we lost a lot of money. We had properties tied up with it. We lost well over $1 million, and we were left with a big mortgage on a house and no jobs with 3 children at school. So I just dug deep and what was it that I did really well in life and what did I love? And going back to my corporate experience, it was people. It was working with sales, it was working with teams, it was working with product knowledge and customer service. So I started the training company, and within 1 year, I'm very happy to say I signed over $1 million in training to be delivered over this 18-month period. So the business grew very quickly. We ended up with 18 staff on the Sunshine Coast, 36 trainers around Australia, and in 2014, I took the company internationally.
Wow, I've read your book, The Million Dollar Handshake. I learned there is an art as well as science to handshakes. Can you share with our viewers your perfect recipe to $1 million handshake?
Very good question. All right, so most of my business was done face to face, and I didn't want to write a book, and I was kept being told, Cath, you got to write a book. So I put everything together, the handshake, body language, mindset, behaviors, the conscious connection framework, and how to connect and communicate with people everywhere. I think that is the key to life. Now, even though we may not be handshaking face to face at the moment, we are still meeting and greeting people face to face. So making that connection is really important. Face to face, we get about 7 seconds. On stage, we get about 15 seconds. But on social media, it's only 2 to 3 seconds. So you need to capture your audience. So I've got some great tips and skills around that if anyone wants to contact me later. But for the handshake, which I've just completed a big study on it, and we have 65% of people so far answering they want to go back to the handshake. Now, the great thing about the handshake is it keeps you around 3 feet from the other person. You only use your right hand. Your hands do self-sanitize, but you can wash them. You can use hand gel immediately. You can have wipes in your pocket. So you can keep yourself quite well, providing you don't touch your face. Now, the biggest problem is everyone wants to touch their face. 5 of the biggest tips: make great eye contact. If everything fails with the handshake or the namaste or the tapping, just make great eye contact. Really important. And John F. Kennedy completed a whole study around handshakes and said the eyes were just as important. So making good eye contact is important. Shaking for only 2 to 3 seconds, because if you shake too long, you don't know when to let go. A little bit like Donald Trump's handshake with the Japanese Prime Minister, where he shook and pulled and patted his hand for 19 seconds. It lifted the Japanese Prime Minister out of his seat and he rolled his eyes. So it wasn't very comfortable at all. Or perhaps one of the top tips is to making sure our webs touch. When your webs connect, you actually meet that person first time every time. If we go to a little to the side because we like to have more time to meet them and our webs don't connect, it just takes that little bit longer to build that relationship. Not shaking for too long, because when we don't pump too much, because if you get really excited or really nervous, it comes through in your hand into the other person's hand. Feels fine for the person that's pumping, but not so good for the person that's not pumping. And another one is, of course, where we began, that degree of firmness, just making sure we match that person. So that'd be the 5 most important things: the eye contact, matching the degree of firmness, making sure our webs touch, the 2 to 3 seconds only, and don't be a pumper. 2 to 3 pumps is just enough.
So now we know the perfect recipe. I knew, from your book, most of our viewers know now, and they would be able to, have a perfect handshake. Cath, what do you think is the importance of positivity and humor in one's life? And how does a positive body language look like, and how it is important?
Oh, okay. So, it's very easy, and especially at times of stress and when we're a little bit unsure about things, that our body can fall down. And when we're on computers, our shoulders go over, our head's down. And this position isn't a position that makes you feel great. You see, winners have their heads up and their arms up. So if you're feeling a little bit tired right now, or you're telling yourself things aren't great, have a look at where your body is. No doubt the shoulders will be over, the head will be down. So, very quickly, if you put your feet on the ground right now with me, bring your shoulders up. So let's do this. Bring your shoulders up, bring them around and bring them back down. This actually opens this up. Yeah. And then just give that great big smile, because, when you smile, it's the best you'll ever look. So we want to make sure that we do that. But when we smile, it also uses every facial muscle. And that's really important because it helps keep us awake. So if the mind starts to fall, the body will definitely fall. If the body falls, the mind will start to fall. Is it the chicken or the egg? Who knows? But what I do know is if we can alter our body position, our physiology, we can change the way we think and feel at the moment.
And Cath, you have a very powerful and impactful conscious communication framework. Tell us a little more about that.
Back in 2017, before I wrote the book, I had created some IP, and I was training in the Conscious Connection Framework, and it won an Asia Pacific Award in 2017. This is a little bit of it here in the book, and it starts with body language. So we have full day trainings in body language. I also have keynotes in body language. We've got workbooks to go with it. And then we add mindfulness. Mindfulness is really important. Like, I've been in India, and I've been out to some of the amazing areas, like outside Coimbatore. There's the beautiful, like, the Buddha of self out there, and it's all about mindfulness and being mindful of the planet, of the trees, of the person you're speaking to, of the outcome that you want. Being mindful, one of my top words was love. I think when you're dying, it'll be, did you love enough? But the interesting thing that came up for me at the end of last year, my word for this year was kindness. Because we can love a lot of things, and I've seen people love people, but they're not always kind to them. So starting to be a little bit mindful around that. The next one is behaviors. How we're likely to behave. Now, I love this in communication. So I'm a disc profiler. So we work with the styles of people and how you're likely to behave under pressure, so you can see your domino effect. I'm also a strength coach, so we unlock your top strengths. And when we're working in our strengths, life's easier. And somehow this always seems to happen. We make more money. So that's a really good thing. So we work with body language, mindset, and behaviors to create a level playing field where we have win-win situations where each of us can create better outcomes when we're working together. So that's the conscious connection framework. And once you create something, it could be a blog, it could be a vlog, it could end up a chapter of your book, it could end up your whole book. Nothing is ever wasted once you start to get your thoughts down. So I encourage you to do that.
And Cath, I think we are going to be lucky enough. You are shortly releasing your book, The Conscious Leader. Do you want to talk a little about that?
Well, I haven't got it in front of me, but it's about leadership, tried and tested leadership techniques that I've been using for years, working with corporates around the world. I actually created for the Diploma of Leadership and Management, the Emotional Intelligence Unit. So we use that in there as well with our leadership. But we are putting all our mindfulness tools in with our leadership to create the conscious leader who's going out into the world and making a difference. So we need leaders to make decisions and be strong, but we also don't just need thought leaders in the world, we need thoughtful leaders. And how is this impact going to impact the rest of us? So we need to start with ourselves first and find out. So in this book, we have tools for you to be actually find out who you are, what your leadership style is, and have a little bit of a fun with that as well. And then also pick up the other tools. What tools are missing from your box that you would love to add to it to be the leader you want to follow in the world? I hear people complaining all the time about different leaders and different managers, but what do they want and how are they leading themselves? And I truly believe that happiness comes when we're on purpose.
Wow, this sounds so interesting, and looks like a simple toolbox, a play kit to use to become a conscious leader. I'm waiting for it.
It's so good. So there's a lot that goes into leadership skills. There's a lot that goes into mindfulness, and put them together, and we really can become that conscious leader.
Cath, your word of the year is kindness. Tell us a little more about that.
I'm just the people that I live with and my friends. It's not just about loving them, but being a little bit more kinder. So having a look, is there something that they need? And when I started my business in 2010, 2009 in the crisis, I said to my husband, 10% off the top is going to go to charity. And he's like, but we've lost everything. Why would you do that? And I said, because I needed something a little bit more than just us to push me to that next level. And so we were donating that money to different places. And then I met a lady that I was working for some girls called Shine. So young girls that had been from broken homes, have been abused or bullied. And we had a program there, and they used to go to Uganda to help children in some of the poorest places. And it's a fourth world country. So, sometimes you can't even get bread. You mightn't have clothes. You can't be educated. So it's bringing all these things to them. And so from there on, that ended up my charity of choice. And we now work with over 200 women and children, and 1/3 of the $1 Million Handshake. So a check just came in the other day. And of course, as an international speaker, most of my work's gone. And I said, brilliant, 1/3 of that's going off to the charity. And John, my husband's like, but we haven't got any money at the moment, because all your work's cancelled. I said, that was the best gift ever. When things feel tough and you give, you always receive when you give. So that was probably my favorite giving time, when we actually have had my wages slashed well from 20,000 to about 1,000 or 2,000. So to be able to give when that came through was amazing.
Cath, now with the current situation, with the world moving to a new normal, people collaborating virtually over different kind of tools, either on phones without their video on or with their videos on. How do you think body language in such a scenario when people are not face to face but interacting virtually with or without seeing themselves, how does it impact the other person receiving you?
Look, it's just as important. Most of the time, people can see other people or see themselves. So it's important to dress fully because you never know when you need to stand up. And we've got some pretty funny videos showing people getting caught out in meetings, in their underwear. So it is important to dress when you're going into these meetings, so you don't get caught out. To have good lighting so that people can see your eyes, especially. Once again, virtually, don't touch your face, because if I was touching my face while I was talking to you, it's very distracting and you might think, yeah, she doesn't really know what she's talking about right now. So to be more confident, have that great posture, smile on your face, and look down your web camera. Here's a little tip. Put a little smiley dot on your web camera just beside it, and that way it'll remind you, if you do take your eyes away when you're talking to someone, to go back and to look at that dot instead of looking at yourself to see if you look okay.
So these are quite, handful tips. You're definitely going to help millions of people who are looking, to connect virtually or are actually connecting virtually. And this will become quite more often even after the end of this pandemic. And this brings us to the most exciting section of our conversation, 60 Seconds Quickie Challenge. Cath, are you ready for the challenge?
All right, rapid fire. This sounds scary.
So here is the first question for you. What do you find yourself doing the most these days?
Talking on Zoom.
Your favorite place to visit?
My horse paddock and pat all the animals.
The first thing that you do as soon as you wake up?
I drink water.
Most used app on your phone?
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yes. One man who has the most impressive body language?
One man who has the most impressive body language. My dad. He was amazing. He never had a grumpy look on his face.
What is one thing that makes you smile always?
Just thinking of my family and the living animals on this planet make me laugh a lot.
So this brings us to the end of our conversation. Cath, it was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I wish everyone well and a safe time. And I'm sure this pause will be over and we'll all look back at it with some fond memories, because every day we do need to find a little bit of joy and something to smile at. Thank you.
You positive souls, if you enjoyed this conversation with Cath Molloy and would like to hear more such conversations, please press the bell button and subscribe to our channel PositiWitty. Namaskar.